When the world almost ended, the Cuban Missile Crisis explained. It was October 1962. The world held its breath. For 13 days, humanity stood on the edge of destruction. One wrong move, one miscalculation, could have turned the Cold War into a global catastrophe. In classrooms, children practiced hiding under desks. On television, news anchors spoke with grim urgency. Across continents, people whispered the unthinkable: nuclear war. This is the story of how two superpowers, locked in a deadly stare, brought the world to the brink, and then somehow pulled it back. This is the Cuban Missile Crisis, explained. Setting the stage, to understand how it all began, we have to go back to the tension that had been brewing for years. After World War II, the world was divided. On one side, the United States and its allies. On the other, the Soviet Union and the growing communist bloc. It was a Cold War, not fought with bullets, but with ideology, espionage, and fear. In 1959, a revolution shook the Caribbean. A young guerrilla leader named Fidel Castro overthrew the Cuban government and declared his allegiance to communism. Just 90 miles off the coast of Florida, Cuba suddenly became a thorn in America's side and a potential Soviet stronghold. A dangerous game of chess. The United States tried everything to remove Castro: economic sanctions, political pressure, even a failed invasion known as the Bay of Pigs in 1961, where Cuban exiles, backed by the CIA, tried to reclaim the island. It was a disaster, and it pushed Cuba closer to the Soviet Union. Soviet Premier Nikita Khrushchev saw an opportunity. By placing nuclear missiles in Cuba, he could protect his ally and level the playing field. After all, American missiles were already stationed in Turkey and Italy, aimed at Moscow. So, in secret, the Soviets began shipping weapons, missiles and troops to Cuba. Missile sites were constructed under camouflage and secrecy, but they didn't stay hidden for long. The discovery. On October 14, 1962, a US U-2 spy plane flying over Cuba took photographs that changed history. The images revealed Soviet missile sites, capable of launching nuclear warheads into American cities within minutes. When President John F. Kennedy saw the photos, he knew the stakes. This wasn't just a provocation, it was a direct threat. He convened a group of advisors, the Executive Committee of the National Security Council, or EXCOM. Together, they debated what to do. Invade Cuba? Bomb the sites? Do nothing? Every option had risks. Every option could start World War III. The quarantine. Kennedy chose a different path. A naval quarantine around Cuba, not a blockade, which is considered an act of war, but a limited military action to stop Soviet ships from bringing more missiles. On October 22nd, the president went on national television. In calm, firm tones, he revealed the crisis to the American people and to the world. It shall be the policy of this nation to regard any nuclear missile launched from Cuba as an attack by the Soviet Union on the United States, requiring a full retaliatory response. The message was clear: back down or face the consequences. 13 days of fear, the world waited. Soviet ships approached the quarantine line. Would they stop? Would they force their way through? On October 24th, the ships turned around. A sigh of relief echoed across the globe, but the crisis wasn't over. Missiles were already in Cuba. US military forces were on full alert. B-52 bombers armed with nuclear weapons were flying non-stop missions. Submarines lurked beneath the sea. One spark could ignite everything. The letters. Then, a message from Khrushchev arrived. We will remove the missiles if the United States guarantees not to invade Cuba. It seemed like a way out. But the next day, a second message came. Harsher, more demanding. It asked for the removal of US missiles in Turkey. Inside the White House, confusion. Which letter should they respond to? Was the second one a trap? Kennedy made a bold decision. Publicly, he responded only to the first message, agreeing not to invade Cuba. Privately, through back channels, he also agreed to remove the US missiles in Turkey. Within a few months, the world exhales. On October 28th, Khrushchev announced that the missiles would be dismantled and returned to the Soviet Union. The world exhaled. The crisis was over. The nuclear weapons were removed. The US pledged not to invade Cuba, and the Turkish missile withdrawal happened quietly, months later. Legacy of the brink. The Cuban Missile Crisis changed everything. It showed how fragile peace could be. It proved how close the world had come to nuclear annihilation, and it sparked new efforts to reduce the risk. A direct hotline between Washington and Moscow, new arms control agreements, and a sobering realization: there would be no winners in a nuclear war. Kennedy and Khrushchev both faced criticism, but in the end, they had done what mattered most. They had chosen to step back. Closing words. 13 days. That's all it took to bring the world to the edge of oblivion, and 13 days to pull it back. It was a moment when the world almost ended, and a reminder that, in the face of fear, diplomacy, however imperfect, can still save us.